Héctor, ¿me escuchas? No sé si te puedo escuchar yo. ¿Puedes, por favor, repetir? Tú me escuchas, ¿verdad?
Audio, audio, audio. Can you hear me? No, still no. Okay, we have technical difficulties. Now, I may be listening to now. It's better now? Yes, no? Let's try something different. Nope. Yes.
We will come back in a few moments. We have technical difficulties here. Please wait for a moment and we will restart the tour soon. Hello, Hector, are you there? Hello, Hector, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear
Yeah,
me
can you
now?
hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Now we can continue.
Okay, a lot of technical difficulties today. That was unexpected. I apologize. Okay, so in your picture, you have for some time this image with the countries that are member of ESO. Most of them are in Europe. ESO is the European Solar Observatory and European organizations. But we also have some countries that are not from Europe. We have Australia that recently joined as a strategic partner, and we have Chile. Chile is the host country. All the telescopes are built in Chile. In the 60s, Chile was having a campaign to attract human capital to invest in the country. And ESO was looking for sites to build telescope in the southern hemisphere. So ESO offered land, and Chile offered the land, and ESO find the best spot to start building observatories. So we move to our next slide. We can see all the observatory places in Chile. So we have Alma in the China Plateau. Alma is not just from ESO, but is also part of Americans and people from Asia Pacific countries. So ESO is just one of the science contributors to Alma. And in China, in addition to Alma, we also have Apex, that is another antenna. To the source, we have La Silla Observatory. That was actually the first observatory of ESO in Chile. And the star telescope is the ESO 3.6-meter telescope. Now, towards the north, we have Paranal and Armazones. So in Paranal, we have the VLT, the Very Large Telescope, and VLTI, the Very Large Telescope Interferometer. We also have the telescope VST and VISTA. Those two are survey telescopes, so they make a survey of the entire sky. And in Cerro Amazonas, that is very close to Cerro Paranal, we have the ELT being built, the Extremely Large Telescope. And also near Paranal, we will have soon, in a few years maybe, CTA, and that is an array of telescopes that will be specialized in observing gamma rays. Now let's travel to Paranal Observatory, and we have a virtual video of ourselves flying at top of the desert. Farid, if you can put it. Okay, so here we're starting in Europe, and we will be moving to this South America and then to Paranal Observatory. So you can see here the highlights of the continent, and we're traveling across the ocean to the desert, to the Atacama Desert in South America. This is one of the driest deserts in the world, and it's one of the best places in the world to have telescope on the surface of the Earth. Why? Because the air is very dry, so there is very little troubles because of the lights going through the atmosphere. Now, Paranal Observatory is located about 1,600 kilometers to the north of Santiago, the capital of Chile, and is specifically about 130 kilometers to the south of Antofagasta, the regional capital. Now, we can see ourselves now going through this desert landscape. And here we're not yet in Paranal, but we are in the place of La Silla Observatory. We can see some of the La Silla telescope there. So we need to move further north to go to Paranal. So here at the top of the Paranal mountain. And here we're traveling to the desert to Paranal. Okay, now you can see there in the distance the summit of Paranal mountain. I'll let you know that Paranal in the Quechua language, it means whirlwind. And this is probably a reference to some whirlpools that sometimes form here in the desert. But the atmosphere is usually very calm. Now, if you can see there in the distance, there is a bit of haze. And those are actually clouds. And here we're actually 12 kilometers in a straight line to the ocean. And the Pacific Ocean is below that sea of clouds that we can see there in the distance. So you may wonder why so many clouds and why are there many clouds in the desert specifically? Well, this is because of the Humboldt current. So this is a mass of cold water that comes from the Antarctic and goes through the coast of Chile and also Peru. And it produces an effect known as thermal inversion. And basically, all the humidity and the clouds, they form about 1,000 kilometers, of 1,000 meters above sea level, and they stay there. They stay there partly because we have the coastal mountain range of Chile that stopped it from coming into the continent. And here we're at 1,600 meters above sea level. So we're above the clouds, and we don't have clouds above us. So we have very clear sky to do astronomical observations. This is to the west, and to the east we have another natural barrier that also is responsible of this desertic landscape, that is the Andes mountain range, with mountains that are about 8,000 meters or 6,000 meters high. These mountains, they stop the clouds and bad weather coming from Argentina and Bolivia. So the result is this very arid landscape that we have here. And now if we move closer to the observatory, so we can see the telescopes, as we have here we have. So here we have the summit of Paranal. As you can see, the top of the mountain was cut, a road was built, and we have several telescopes that you can see their name on the screen. So we have the VLT, the Very Large Telescope, and you can see there is not just one telescope, but four telescopes. You can see there is a control room and some smaller telescopes. And our next step will be to set foot on the platform of Paranal Observatory. And you can see here, we're at the main platform of the observatory. Let's take a look around. So over here we have the clouds, below the clouds, the ocean. Now we're looking towards the south, towards the east. Over here is the base camp. And over here, we're back where we started. So here we have the BLT, the Very Large Telescope, and it's this ensemble of four very large telescopes. Each one of them has a primary mirror that is 8.2 meters in diameter. Now, the telescopes, they are the same, but they have different instruments, different cameras. Each one has three different cameras, and they can work independently, observing these different objects, different galaxies or stars or whatever, but they can also work together using a technique known as interferometry. And we have a small video that allows to explain that a little better. Farid, if you can put it. Okay,
Do
so
you want
when
the
we're
interferometry video, Hector?
yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so when we're doing interferometry, we are combining the lights of the four big telescopes, and we can also use these four smallest telescopes that I didn't show you just now. And the light is combined in an analog way. This is not a post-processing. We're actually sending the light through tunnels, to underground tunnels, to the interferometry building where it's combined. And we do this to get a better image. When we're doing interferometry, we have a gain in the resolution. That is our ability to differentiate two things in the sky. So if our resolution is bad, two stars that are very close nearby may look as a single bigger star. But if you have better resolution, we can see them as separate objects. And when you're doing interferometry, the baseline, that is the maximum separation between your telescopes, is what sets your resolution. So since we're using here telescopes that are farther apart, at about 200 meters apart, we have a resolution that will be similar to a single telescope of 200 meters in diameter. But this is only in terms of resolution. The amount of light we can collect does not increase that. So the amount of light we can collect is restricted by the size of our mirrors. This is like putting a bucket on terrain. Larger bucket captures larger amount of rain. Larger mirror captures a larger amount of light, and that means that we can see fainter objects, and they can be fainter because they are farther away or because they are intrinsically fainter. So we still need to build larger telescopes if we want to observe things that are very far away. So I mentioned that the four small telescopes that we see here, these are the auxiliary telescopes. They work only doing interferometry. I have one here. There's a second one, third, and fourth. There are four of them. And as you can see, they are on tracks because they can be moved. And when we move, we can modify the baseline of the interferometry. And we see these trapped up here, these octagonal doors. There are about 30 of those in this platform. So we can put them in 30 different positions. And those are the auxiliary telescope. Now, the VLT, these four big ones, They are usually referred to as individually as UT1, UT2, UT3, and UT4, but they actually were given names in the Mapudungun language. This is the language of the Mapuche people, the natives of the central and southern parts of Chile, and in that language the names are Antu, which means the sun, this is UT1, then UT2 is Cuyen, which means the moon, UT3 is Melipal, and Melipal means something like 4 stars and is a reference to the Southern Cross constellation. And finally, we have my favorite telescope, UT4, which is Jepun. And Jepun means something like the evening star, and it's a reference to the planet Venus that is very bright in the evening or in before sunrise, depending on where it is on his orbit with respect to the Earth. Now, as I mentioned before, the four big telescopes they are the same. They have the same structure, but they have different instruments. So we're not gonna go inside all four of them, just one of them, but keep in mind they're very similar. We're going to go into UT3 or Melipal. So here we are inside of UT3, and you can see here we have some people working during the day, engineers probably doing some maintenance, and this gives us a sense of the scale of how big this actually is. Here we have the primary mirror, and this primary mirror is 8.2 meters in diameter, made out of a single piece. There are larger telescopes, but they now are being built using segmented mirrors that have many different pieces. This is a single piece mirror. It's made out of a special material called Cyrodur. It's a sort of glass ceramic mix, and the top layer, and I'm talking about nanometers here, is aluminum, and this is what gives the reflectivity to the mirror. And this mirror weighs 22 tons, but it's only 17 centimeters in thickness. On top, we have the secondary mirror that we have here, and there is a third mirror that we cannot see too well on this image, but it's somewhere here in the center. Now, I mentioned that this telescope has three instruments. We have one here, there is one on the other side, and there is one below here. So here we have our third instrument. We can only use one at a time, one of them at a time. Now, this structure here that supports the mirror, this what we call a cell, is very interesting. And you can see here some little gray boxes. These are the so-called actuators. So, okay, so what do? They are part of the active optics technology. So the material of this mirror is slightly flexible, and this is important because when we tilt the mirror, if it's not flexible enough, it could break because of its own weight, because it's very heavy. So the solution was use a somewhat flexible material. But that means that the curve of the mirror is not the same always. So what we're doing here, we're in lifetime having sensors that they know the positions of different places in the mirror and they correct it so that the curve of the mirror is always the same. So these actuators, they're actually like pistons. They can push or they can pull in order to keep the curve of the mirror always the same. So we have always the same consistent type of observations. This is one of the technologies that allows us to make a more lighter mirror, and that makes Paranal Observatory one of the most advanced on the planet. Let's go back on top. Now, how do this work at night? Well, first we need to open the dome, and we can see that the enclosure is open this part over here. This is like the window that it gets open. And we have a video showing how this actually gets working at night. Farid, can you put it, please? Okay, so we have here, obviously this is more exaggerated. The dome doesn't open this much. And we see the light that will come from the sky, will hit the primary mirror, then it will bounce and go to the secondary mirror. Then it will bounce again, and then the third mirror, that is a flat mirror, will send it to the right to one of the instrument, or to the left to the other instrument, or it will let the light go through it so we can reach the third instrument. And that is how we can select which of the three instruments we can use. So that gives us an idea of how the light works here. Okay, so now that we have an idea how the light paths is from the sky to the telescope, let's comment a bit about the motions that these telescopes have. So this blue supporting structure is fixed, and this white part, it can be tilted. That's one motion. And the second is, if you see here, this part of the floor is separated from the rest. That is because this part over here can rotate 360 degrees. So combining the motions of inclination and rotation, we can point to any place on the sky. And that is how we point the telescope. Now, we're going to go outside and continue our tour. At night, there can be no one inside the telescope, and all the lights must be shut down because there will be contamination going into the images. So everybody is working at night from the control room, and that is our next stop. The control room is over here. So this is the control building, and here we can see it from a different angle. In addition to having the control of the telescopes, we also have here some office for the engineers and the different people working here. So let's go inside. So you see here we have a lot of places with a lot of computers. And if you see here, there is a sign that says UT4. That is because this part over here is only to control the UT4 telescope. And if we go here, now we're in the area that controls the UT1 telescope. And over here, we're inside this space for, I believe this is for the UT2. Or it could be, I don't see the name too clearly. But you see here a lot of computers, a lot of screens. So you may think that a lot of people work here at night. That is not the case. During the night, there will usually be only two persons here. There will be an astronomer and a telescope operator. Okay, so these telescopes are very advanced and very expensive, so they don't let astronomers handle them. There is a specific job that is in charge of handling the telescope. That is the telescope operator. We can think of this as a pilot and a co-pilot in a rally car or in a plane. The pilot is guiding the vehicle, and the co-pilot is giving the route to follow. In the same way, the telescope operator, he's handling the telescope, and the astronomer is supervising the science. Now, why so many screens if it's only two people working here? Well, you have to remember that each telescope has three instruments. We would like to have a dedicated computer for each instrument. We may also want to have a dedicated computer just to move the telescope and handle its operation. And we also need screens that give us information about the weather. If the weather is bad, we might need to close the observations. And this could be because it's too windy, and if the wind speed is too high that it might leave a small pebble, that could break one of the mirrors. So we don't want that. So we have a maximum speed of the wind that above which we close the observations. And we can also close because there is too much humidity or because there are clouds, but that is not that common. In here we have over 300 clear nights a year. So most of the nights, they are being observed the whole night. Now, what do you have to do to be able to observe here? Okay, if you're an astronomer, what you have to do is you have to send a proposal. There are 2 times a year where astronomers can send observation proposals, and these proposals they have to be like very detailed. You have to say what you want to study, what are the scientific reasons to do it, whether these objects have been observed before with other instruments, with other telescopes, which telescope you want to use, for, for how long, with which camera, how far apart the moon needs to be for the observation to be useful, etc., etc. And this is highly competitive. Paranal Observatory receives over 7 times more proposals that they have time to assign to actual observations. Once your proposal has been accepted, if you're lucky, and if you have a very good scientific case, because this is decided solely on the scientific merit of the proposal, and there is a committee that decides this. If you get time, then you can choose between the visitor mode and the service mode. In the visitor mode, you travel here, you sit on the chair, and you supervise your observations. In the service mode, you don't get to travel, and you give your instruction to an astronomer of the ESO staff, and they supervise the science for you. And once everything is done and the observations are ready, they are private for you for about 1 year. You have that time to advance on your science. After that, everything is made public and is put on a ESO archive website where astronomers can download those observations if they like. Now, usually astronomer will inform other people that are going to use their observations. They will send an email and tell you, I want to do this type of science with the observation that you take. Is that good with you? And people will usually be very fine with that. Sometimes they will ask if they can collaborate in the investigations because astronomy is a very collaborative science. Now, we have speak a bit about the process to get observations here, but what are the actual science results that we have? We have a video with our top 10 discoveries. So if we can put that, please.
Yes, Hector, lend me a moment, please.
Okay.
Observations with ESO telescopes have led to many breakthroughs in astronomy and, over the years, have been responsible for some truly remarkable findings. Here is our list of ESO's top 10 astronomical discoveries so far. Astronomers using ESO's Very Large Telescope have discovered by far the brightest galaxy yet found in the early universe, and found strong evidence that examples of the first generation of stars lurk within it, stars that were previously only theoretical. These massive, brilliant objects were the creators of the first heavy elements in history, elements that are necessary to forge the stars we see around us today, the planets that orbit them, and life as we know it. ESO telescopes have provided definitive proof that long gamma-ray bursts are linked with the climatic explosions of massive stars, therefore solving an enduring mystery. A telescope at La Silla was also able to observe the visible light from a short gamma-ray burst for the first time, showing that this family of objects most likely originates from colliding neutron stars. Astronomers using ESO's HARPS instrument in 2010 discovered a planetary system containing at least 5 planets orbiting the Sun-like star HD 10180. They also found evidence that 2 other planets may be present, one of which, if confirmed, would be among the lowest mass exoplanets ever found. Newer observations and reanalysis of the data suggest that there could be even more planets around this star. ESO's Very Large Telescope was used to detect carbon monoxide molecules in a remote galaxy, seen as it was 11 billion years ago, a feat that had remained elusive for 25 years. This allowed astronomers to obtain the most precise measurement of the cosmic temperature at such a remote epoch, and it matched the temperature predicted by the Big Bang Theory. The atmosphere around a super-Earth exoplanet was analysed for the first time using the VLT. The planet, which is known as GJ1214b, was studied as it passed in front of its parent star, and some of the starlight filtered through the planet's atmosphere. The atmosphere was found to be either mostly water in the form of steam or dominated by thick clouds or haze. Using ESO's VLT, astronomers measured the age of the oldest star known in the Milky Way. At 13.2 billion years old, the star was born in the earliest era of star formation in the universe. Uranium was also detected in a Milky Way star and used as an independent estimate of the age of the galaxy. The VLT obtained the first ever image of a planet outside our solar system. The planet, which has a mass about 5 times that of Jupiter, orbits a failed star, a brown dwarf, at a distance of 55 times the average distance between the Earth and the Sun. In 2014, ALMA, the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, revealed remarkable details of a solar system that is forming. The images of HL Tauri were the sharpest ever made at sub-millimeter wavelengths. They show how forming planets are vacuuming up dust and gas in a protoplanetary disk. One of ESO's proudest moments came when 2 independent research teams, including ESO staff, arrived at a truly revolutionary finding: that the cosmos is not only expanding, but that it is doing so at an increasing rate. The findings of the separate teams were based on observations of exploding stars, or supernovae, including measurements made from ESO's telescopes at La Silla and Paranal. This discovery was rewarded with the 2011 Nobel Prize in Physics. And finally, several of ESO's flagship telescopes were used in a 20-year study to obtain the most detailed view ever of the surroundings of the monster lurking at the heart of our galaxy, a supermassive black hole. Astronomy is always moving forwards, and ESO's top 10 scientific discoveries are not set in stone.
Okay, that was our top 10 discoveries made with all ESO telescopes, and we have a bit of a bonus track, an extra result. A team of astronomers captured the first image of a supermassive black hole and its shadow. Please take a look. The Heaven Horizon Telescope, an array of 8 ground-based telescopes distributed throughout the planet, coordinated by an international collaboration, achieved the first direct visual evidence of a supermassive black hole and its shadow. This image reveals the black hole at the center of Messier 87, a massive galaxy in the nearby Virgo galaxy cluster. This black hole is 55 million light years from the Earth and has a mass of 6.5 billion times that of the Sun. So, a very impressive achievement. Okay, so to continue with our tour, we're going to show you something that we can only show you through this virtual experience: the sky at night on the observatory. Now, there are tours in person to the observatory every Saturday at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. But the visitors, they cannot stay to see this night sky in the observatory because at night people are working here. Let's discuss some of the constellations that we can see here. So over here we have Orion, which was a hunter in the Greek mythology, and it's a constellation that we can see both in the northern and southern sky, and one of the most easy to recognize. We have over here the Orion Belt, or as it's known in the southern countries like Chile, Las Tres Marias, the Three Marys. And over here we have Orion's Nebula, which is very nice to look at. And of course, over here we have Betelgeuse, that from time to time is giving some news because it's changing its brightness. And it's supposed to go off as a supernova explosion somewhere in the next maybe hundreds of years or so. So over here we have Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, after the sun, of course. And this is part of the Canis Majoris, the dog that was accompanying the hunter Orion. Over to the other side, over here we have Taurus and the Pleiades. This is an overcluster of stars. And if we take a look to the other side over here, we have the spiral arm of the Milky Way. And over here we have these two cloud-like objects. These are the Magellanic Clouds. These are satellite galaxies of our Milky Way. We have the big Magellanic Cloud and the small one. And in the northern hemisphere, you can always find the north using the northern star, the polar star Polaris. But we don't have a bright star marking the center in the southern skies. But we can use the two Magellanic Clouds. What we need to do is form a triangle. So over here is the south celestial pole, and right below the southern direction. That's one way of finding the south. The other one is using the Southern Cross. And here's the Southern Cross constellation, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the smallest constellation of all. So we take the larger stick of the cross and we extend it one, two, three, three and a half, some people say four times. And over here is the southern celestial pole. And if we can see, this is actually the same place that we get with the Magellanic Clouds. And directly below this is the southern direction. And just to last, let's comment also that in the native people that live here in the desert, such as the Atacameños and other ones, they didn't use the same constellation as we use that are they come from the Greeks and Romans and so forth. They use the shadows to make constellations. So here we have a lot of places in the sky that they look darker because there is dust and gas uh, blocking the light that is behind them. And for them, the Milky Way was a river. And to this river, animals came to drink. So over here, for instance, this shaded region over here is the head of a llama that is come to drink to the river. And depending on the time of the sky, we can also see part of the body of the llama. And we also have some other animals there, but I don't know them all that well. So I hope you have enjoyed this beautiful view of the southern sky. And maybe if you travel sometime to Chile, you can see that in the desert somewhere. Not at the observatory, of course, because it's not allowed. So let's go back to the day. And we're going to move to our next destination. So we are at 1,600 meters above sea level. We're going to go down a little bit to the base camp. So the base camp is sort of like a small city. We have here everything we need to have the observatory working, and for the people here to have a working life conditions, let's say. So in addition of workshop, we can build pieces for the telescope or repair things. We also have, for instance, a gym. We also have living quarters, infirmary, many things. And we're going to go here to the residencia building. So the residencia is the homes of the astronomers while they're working here. And you can see here around a little bit. It almost looks like we're going underground, but that's not the case. This is actually built on the side of this mountain. And when we go inside, we will see a landscape very different from the dry desert that we have here outside. Inside of here, we have a lot of green, and this is highly appreciated by the people that is staying here. Now we have this garden alongside this swimming pool, and this is not just for people to do exercise and relax there. This is important because the air here in the desert is very dry. So having here a large water body, let's say, allows us to have a more humid environment that is easier to breathe in. And that is also why we have all these beautiful plants over here. Now, here on the center, we have a curtain, but this sort of works a bit different that curtains usually work. Usually, one have curtains to block the light from outside to come in inside. Here we're going to do the opposite. We want to be able to turn on the lights inside this building at night, but we don't want the light to escape to the outside so they don't contaminate the observations. So this curtain is open at night and close the whole dome area here. Now, over here we have the cafeteria. where people can get their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have the lobby over here. Over here we have the rooms. There are 108 rooms. We also have some offices, a library, a game room, and pretty much everything needs to have their life here. People usually work in shifts, so they usually think that like 7 days working here and 7 days at their own places or some similar type of shifts. Okay, I think this time for us to answer some questions if you have some. So, Farid, are there any questions from our audience today?
Hello, Hector. Well, so far on most of the tour, we have had only greetings from many countries. For example, from well, Amsterdam, Netherlands, also from Germany, from Denmark, from Spain, Canada, and Italy, some people from Chile as well, India, Indonesia. So, well, a lot of countries, of course. Um, we have one question here from Martin Campbell. He says, "He shall be in Chile later this year for my second astrophotography tour. Any chance of imaging from Paranal or near it? Hello from Ireland."
Well, Farid,
Uh,
you are an astrophotographer and a very good one, so I think you are the best person to answer this question.
well, yeah, I take astrophotography, but because this person is asking this question as someone who doesn't work in Paranal, well, basically, no. Unfortunately, it's not permitted to be on site on Paranal Observatory at night to take astrophotography. However, many people going to the observatory are going during the day because we have public visits during the day, and some people interested in taking astrophotography can do it unofficially outside of the fence of the main entrance because some people likes to sometimes spend some time there outside and they can take some nice picture of the night sky. Actually, the observatory is visible from the distance. There are some specific places that some visitors can use it to take night pictures with the telescopes from the distance, but it's not possible to be inside of the facilities, unfortunately. But however, as I told you before, because the surroundings of Paranal are very good, very dark, the people can be a few, 1, 3, 5 kilometers away, and the sky will be very beautiful, of course, if any of you want to take some astrophotography. So that will be my question, my answer.
Okay, thank you, Farid.
And right now we have well other greetings from Mexico, from Tegucigalpa, Honduras, from Romania. But no, we don't have more questions so far. Maybe I can tell you one of the typical questions we receive from visitors in the observatory. Well, for example, what happens when we need to clean the mirrors? Because the mirrors are something very special, very delicate in the telescopes, but we need to do something to do some maintenance there. So, Hector, how is possible to clean the mirrors in Paranal?
Okay, there are two types of maintenance that are done on the mirrors. So the first one, and the more easy one, let's say, for this one, the mirror is tilted, and a foam of carbon dioxide is sprayed on the mirror. And this foam will fall down because of gravity, and it will drag with it any dust particles that might have been deposited on the surface of the mirror. And this is done every other week or so. The second type of maintenance is more complicated and is called the recoating process. So for this, the entire mirror is removed from the telescope using a special crane put on a truck, and then it's taken to a special building in the base camp. And there, the aluminum layer that gives the reflectivity to the mirror is removed, and then a new layer is put in place. This whole process takes about a week during which time there is no mirror inside the telescope, so it cannot be used. And this has to be very careful about not damaging the mirror because there are no replacements for these mirrors. And this process is done every 18 months or so, but it's done in a sequential order. So if they do it today, let's say for the UT1 telescope, 18 months later, months later will be the time of the UT2 telescope, and then UT3, and then UT4. So those are the two maintenance that are done on the mirrors.
Okay, Hector, thank you very much. And we have one question here, and I think this will be the last one from today. Roberto Borsa is asking, is there a public visit program for visiting Paranal Observatory? So maybe you
Uh,
can tell a
yes,
little
and,
bit.
and not only for Paranal Observatory, but also for the Sea Observatory. So there are public visits every Saturday, one at 10 a.m., the other one at 2 p.m. This is completely free, but you have to get to the observatory by your own means. There is no buses or anything like that. And also, you need to register your name first. So you can go to the ESO website and put your name and the name of all the persons that are going to accompany you. And once you get that, you can just come. You have to arrive maybe half an hour earlier, or so that you have some time. And the tour takes about 2 hours or something like that. And again, it's completely free. There are some restrictions about like kids no younger than 3 years, let's say. I don't remember the exact age, but overall, it's completely free. And it's a very nice experience. So if you have the time of the opportunity to travel to Chile and go to Paranal Observatory, please do it. It's a very nice experience. And on that note, I would actually like to remind everybody that in the ISO website, you can find videos, pictures, and you can also find this 360 tour, and you can go and do it at your own pace. And
Say,
so,
Hector, and I also want to remark that we have a survey so the people can send some feedback about this experience. The link to the survey is right now uh, in the chat box, so the people can enter there and they can send some feedback about this virtual experience. So, Hector, I think we are almost ready to finish this experience. You have something else to say goodbye?
I would like to thank everybody for being a part of this tour. Once again, I will apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning. And please let everybody that you know that it might be interesting that we are doing these spiritual tours every Saturday. We are alternating between English and Spanish, and also between Paranal Observatory and La Silla Observatory. So please let your friends know that we are doing this so they can be a part of it if they are interested in doing so. And having said that, it was my pleasure being your guide for today, and I hope everybody has a very nice afternoon. So I say my goodbyes.
Thank you, Hector. I also want to say goodbye to everyone and thank you for your presence. And please follow our social networks to know when we'll have the next virtual tour. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.